What is up? Good Mic Work Commentaries back at you with episode 466. I am your host, Greg Morgan. Wow, we've got a brand new WWE champion. Unbelievable. Congratulations, AJ Styles, winning the WWE title tonight on SmackDown versus Jinder Mahal from Manchester. This was a spoiler that was released earlier on in the day. Everybody got wind of it. It was all over Twitter, all over social media, and we were all quite excited for this show. And the match turned out to be quite awesome. So, wow, unbelievable. We're going to talk about all of that here. I was up last night, Monday night, after Raw live for a live stream. So those of you who have not checked out that video yet, please do. The link is in the top right-hand corner of the screen there. I talked about what we saw on Raw last night, answered a few questions, and just, chatted some wrestling with all of you guys for a couple of hours. And because I did that video last night, I'm going to go backwards in this video, and I'm going to talk about SmackDown first. I will still talk about Raw. I'll give you a review on that show later on, but since we had such a big title change on SmackDown, I decided I wanted to talk about that first. Quick little programming note for you. I wanted to get this video up as quickly as possible, so I am not currently watching the Ric Flair 30 for 30 special. I'll mention that a little bit later on in the video. And I also wanted to get this episode up as quickly as possible because on Thursday, you're going to get a brand new This Day in History video from me, and I think you guys all know what I will be discussing in that episode. I've already mentioned it a couple of times, and the cat is out of the bag, so I wanted to get this episode up as early as possible. That way it has time to sit on the channel for a day or two before I release another video. So let's go ahead and start with SmackDown right now, the November 7th edition from Manchester. This was a tape show because of the vast time difference between England and the United States. So it was taped earlier on. We got the spoilers, and sure enough, AJ Styles has won the WWE title. We speculated on this. To me, this is wildly confusing, but I talked about this last night. I talked about it over the weekend on social media when this match was announced. Remember, AJ Styles was supposed to take on Rusev, and the winner getting the final spot on the SmackDown team. But they announced on social media, I think Shane McMahon tweeted out a few days ago that AJ would now be taking on Jinder Mahal for the title in the main event of SmackDown this week. So that kind of got us all thinking. A lot of fans got really excited. Holy shit, AJ is going to win the title. I still maintained that I did not think he was going to win. I thought it was going to be just an opportunity for Raw to show up and fuck up the title match or something like that. The way WWE has been building Jinder versus Brock on TV, Jinder's been cutting all those promos, calling himself the Beastmaster, which was horribly lame. It just looked like that's the direction they were going in. So for them to just change their minds and change directions so quickly and so rapidly like that, this raised a lot of red flags with us. We're like, why would the WWE change directions like that out of the blue? So a lot of people are speculating that maybe Jinder Mahal is hurt because there have been reports of him working with a sore shoulder. I don't know if this is a wellness policy violation. I don't want to go that far. I know a lot of people like to joke about Jinder Mahal and steroids and shit, but I don't know what the situation is here. So we all thought that maybe AJ could actually win the title. And I mentioned last night in my live show that WWE might want to try something that happened to them all those years ago with Mick Foley during the Monday Night Wars when WCW announced on Nitro that later on Mick Foley was going to win the world title on Raw. And as soon as they said that, a couple of million people immediately changed the channel over to Raw to watch that happen. So maybe WWE thought that they could experiment here. Why don't we have a title change on a taped show? And because of social media, we'll see how quickly the word spreads and we'll see if it sparks a rating. A lot of people cannot stand Jinder Mahal and a lot of people love AJ Styles. So if word gets out that AJ is going to win the title, you might actually have, believe it or not, you might actually have more people tuning in to see that happen because we already know the outcome. So I think the ratings are probably going to be pretty good for SmackDown. I would hope they would be. It would be a shame if they weren't. This is one of those rare situations where I think knowing a spoiler might have actually helped WWE in their ratings. So anyway, AJ Styles won that match pretty much completely clean. The Singh brothers were out there trying to get involved, but he was able to, overcome those odds. He went for the phenomenal forearm earlier in the match, and Jinder countered and hit him with his finisher, but AJ put his foot on the ropes and saved the 3 count. After that, I think he clotheslined Jinder on the top rope, and AJ fell out of the ring, and then he jumped up on the ring apron. The Singh brothers have already been knocked out, and he had Jinder in perfect position in the middle of the ring, nailed him with a phenomenal forearm, and got the pin. And what a pop. And I got to tell you, to all the fans, the wrestling fans over there in England, people who listen to me, I have a big audience over there. You guys are awesome wrestling fans, and you guys deserve to see a WWE title change. I am so glad that happened. And I guess they announced this. I heard Corey Graves say it. I guess it's correct, but this is the first time in history the WWE title has changed hands outside of North America. That's incredible. I never really thought about that before, but yeah, that's true. I think there's a couple of unrecognized title changes. I know Antonio Inoki won the title. I believe he beat Bob Backlund for it in Japan, but the title change was never recognized. There might be another situation too that escapes me at this moment, but yeah, for the most part, no WWE title has ever changed hands outside of the United States or Canada. So that's pretty awesome. I think those fans deserved it. I think the country deserved it. It was a really good spot for AJ to win that title because AJ is huge over there. I really liked WWE's decision here to put the belt on AJ. And did you notice as soon as he won the title, they immediately showed the graphic on the screen of AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series. This, like I said, really surprises me. And we also saw Jinder Mahal attack the Singh brothers after that match, too. He was pissed off and he smacked them around a little bit. So I don't know what the deal with Jinder is now. I don't know if he's going to go and be on the 5-on-5 team. I don't know if he's going to take some time off for injury. I don't know if he's in any sort of trouble, and maybe WWE decided to take the belt off of him for some reason that we don't know about. I was saying on Twitter today that we should not go too crazy just yet, because when I first heard about the title change, my immediate thought was, okay, we still have one more week until Survivor Series. We still have a go-home SmackDown show. Jinder Mahal is going to have a rematch clause. Maybe he invokes it next week and the Raw guys show up and cost AJ the belt. And then AJ winds up on the 5-man team instead because he wants to get revenge. So that's still an option. They could put the belt back on Jinder next week, but if they did that, what's the point of even having AJ win it to begin with then? God, think of the disappointment in the fans if the WWE teased us with that AJ Brock match and then they took it away, because AJ versus Brock is going to be a million times better than Brock versus Jinder. Maybe WWE realized that. That's why they decided to go with AJ, but I'm surprised that they even did that, because WWE, you have to know a lot of times they know if a match is going to suck or not, and they usually just go ahead and go through with it anyway. They usually don't care. So for them to change things up like this drastically, is a big surprise. And so maybe that's why I'm kind of thinking there's more to this story than meets the eye. There must be a reason for them to take the belt off of Jinder after he's held it for so long. And a lot of people were speculating that he's going to hold it until WrestleMania. And here they take it off of him on a taped SmackDown. What up with that? So, I don't care, though. I'm thrilled. Jesus Christ. I get to see AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar, most likely anyway. I mean, yes, we still have some house shows and we still have another SmackDown before Survivor Series, but it's looking like that's going to happen now, and that's extremely exciting. So I don't know what the future holds for AJ Styles. I mean, if he's fed to Brock here, if he's defeated by Brock, I hope the fans don't get pissed off about that. I mean, Brock is probably going to beat AJ. He should beat AJ, but I think the match itself is going to be really good. I really enjoyed Brock Lesnar versus CM Punk at SummerSlam a few years ago, and I think AJ Styles versus Brock could be as good or better than that match was. So these are the type of opponents I'd like to see Brock work with. This also might be a test for Brock. If WWE wants to have Brock maybe take on Finn Balor in his next feud, maybe they decided, hey, let's put him in the ring with somebody small that can bump and move around for him, just to give him some experience and practice working with a guy like this, instead of just a sluggish fucking pile of bricks like Jinder. So, AJ could be a tune-up for Finn Balor for Brock Lesnar. Who knows? Either way, the match is going to be fun. The match is going to be awesome. I do not care who wins. And I'm just curious how long AJ is going to hold on to the belt. Jinder is going to get some sort of a rematch. I think there is another India tour looming on the horizon. We've got, some more SmackDowns. We've got a pay-per-view in December. Maybe Jinder gets the belt back and still winds up going in to WrestleMania as champion. Jinder could win it back at some point, so that's an option. There's a lot of different things that they can do. But for the immediate future, I'm just happy that the belt is back on AJ Styles. I thought he did a great job in his first run as champ. I think he truly is the face of SmackDown and someone that brand should be built around. And plus, AJ, he's 40 years old now. He's not going to be wrestling forever. If you want to have him on top of the card and have him in world title scenarios and programs, this is the time you need to do it. You can't do this shit 5 or 10 years from now when he's 45 and 50 years old. So get the most out of your investment in AJ that you can and have him on top of the card as often as possible. So I, for one, cannot be happier that AJ Styles defeated Jinder Mahal and is the new WWE champion. We'll have to see if that sticks and he actually goes into Survivor Series as champ. I think that he will. It's looking like he will. But still, with 1 week left of SmackDown and with that final spot not being filled yet, I do think it's something to at least keep in the back of your mind that perhaps he could drop that belt next week with some interference from Raw and wind up on the 5-man team. Outside of that, hey, AJ's the champ again. and him and Brock is going to make for a fun-ass match in a couple of weeks at Survivor Series. So that was the big story on SmackDown. I would love to hear your opinions on this. When I was tweeting out some opinions during the day today about the AJ title win, just kind of speculating why or how this happened and where they might go from here, a lot of you guys had a lot of different ideas. You know, some people think that AJ is going to drop it in a couple of weeks. Some people think that AJ is going to drop it next week. Some people think AJ is not going to drop it at all and Jinder is getting suspended for a wellness policy violation. Some people think Jinder is hurt. Nobody knows what the fuck is going on. So if we see any news on WWE's website tomorrow about Jinder going off to have surgery or perhaps being in a little bit of trouble, I don't know why WWE would have changed direction like this. Just pretty cool, pretty surprising. And I'm happy about it. So let me know what all of you think in the comments below. Backtracking now to what else we saw on SmackDown, the show did open up with a Shane McMahon promo. Basically came out there to say he wants to get revenge and vows to get revenge on Raw for what they did to Daniel Bryan. He then brought out the New Day, commending them for showing up at Raw last night and costing Seth and Dean the tag team titles. And as the New Day are in the ring, cutting a promo with Shane McMahon and dancing around, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn come out to the stage. They're pissed that they're not involved in the 5-on-5 team at Survivor Series. And after a little bit of jawing back and forth, Shane McMahon makes a one-on-one match between Kofi Kingston and Sami Zayn. That match opens the show. Kofi gets the victory there, gets a surprise pin on Sami Zayn with a crossbody off the second rope. Owens and Sami Zayn immediately attack Kofi after the match. New Day comes into the ring to run off Sami and Owens, and they retreat. And next week it was announced later on in the show that the New Day will be taking on Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens in a tag team match on the go-home SmackDown. We all thought poor Rusev was left out in the cold because he, of course, was supposed to face AJ Styles this week, with the winner getting the final spot on the SmackDown team. And because AJ was getting the title shot instead, we were all wondering what was going to happen with Rusev. So it turns out that he still had an opportunity on SmackDown to make the SmackDown team if he defeated Randy Orton in a one-on-one match. Of course, he did not. Randy Orton hit him with a pretty nasty RKO and got the victory there. And so Rusev is still not on the team, and SmackDown has still only got 4 guys. So you got to wonder, is it going to be somebody like AJ or Jinder Mahal, depending on what happens next week? Or is it going to be a surprise? Do we think John Cena could maybe make an appearance? I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that Cena wouldn't make any sense on either team because he's been on both Raw and SmackDown in the past couple of months. So if he came out there and declared himself on SmackDown's team, I don't know what sense that would make. And there was also the talk of him being the special referee in the Jinder Mahal-Brock Lesnar match. I thought that was all set in stone, but I don't know if that's still going to be the case now with AJ and Brock, or if Cena's going to have a different role at Survivor Series, and maybe he's on the SmackDown team. I don't know. If it's not John Cena, and it's not Rusev, and it's not Jinder Mahal, or it's not AJ Styles, then who is it going to be? Could they do something fun and put Chad Gable in there for shits and gigs and have him and Jason Jordan have a little one-on-one confrontation at Survivor Series? We could see that. But as far as who is going to round out that SmackDown team, I really don't know yet. I guess we'll find out next week. This SmackDown was loaded with good stuff. We also had an intergender match. Well, sort of. Becky Lynch took on James Ellsworth in a one-on-one match, and this was actually a match. They actually got in there and wrestled. Earlier on, backstage, there was a segment where Ellsworth is looking for Carmella. He runs into Becky and starts talking shit about women. You know, with this match shouldn't even happen. I'm a man and men are superior, and all this shit. All these crazy sexist comments. That brings out the entire women's division. They're basically surrounding the ring for this one-on-one match. And Becky kicks this kid's ass, man. And James Ellsworth, I love him. God, he is so fucking hideous. You know, in his little outfit and his gross belly and his nasty physique and his white hair and his pale body and his no chin. He's nasty, but I just get a kick out of him. I actually like his look. And he's out there just getting the crap beaten out of him by Becky. He tries to leave at one point, and all the women stop him and get him back in the ring. Becky eventually locks him in her disarmor, or whatever it's called. When he tries to hug her and tries to make up, he's begging for forgiveness, pleading for forgiveness, and tries to hug Becky. She grabs his arm, puts him in the armbar, and he taps like a bitch. After that, Carmella gets in the ring, and she's disgusted with him and hits him with a super kick. So Ellsworth just got shit on tonight on SmackDown. And with all these weird illnesses and guys dropping belts and getting buried, you have to wonder, is there any fucking wellness policy violations going on out there? You know, we haven't seen Bray Wyatt in nearly 30 days. You know, Roman Reigns has been on the shelf. Nia Jax went home for a couple of weeks. Jinder drops the belt unexpectedly, and now Ellsworth is completely buried after he's been, you know, kind of Carmella's bitch. It makes me think that she might have turned on him, and that could be it. But, you know, I'm sure he'll be there, right there with her next week in his collar and his leash on SmackDown. But it's kind of funny, all these little situations that are arising here. It just makes me wonder a little bit if there's some shit going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. And speaking of Becky Lynch and the rest of the women's division, there was a segment backstage where Shane McMahon is hanging out with Charlotte. Natalya shows up and they talk a little bit, and Shane makes a match next week, Charlotte versus Natalya, for the SmackDown women's title. And if Charlotte wins, then she will be the title holder going into Survivor Series to face Alexa Bliss. So we now have yet another possible Survivor Series card change here. If Charlotte winds up winning the belt from Natalya and she goes on and faces Alexa Bliss, they might want to do that because maybe they don't want to give us Charlotte and Asuka quite yet. Charlotte and Asuka, as of right now, are on opposite sides of the 5-on-5 women's match at Survivor Series, so maybe they want to hold that confrontation off and put the belt on Charlotte, which means we'll have another change of direction as far as Survivor Series goes. First with the tag team titles, now with the world title, and next week possibly with the SmackDown's women's title. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. I'm kind of rooting for Charlotte. I love her, and maybe she beats Natalya next week and becomes the new champ. We'll have to wait and see there. There was also a tag team title match on SmackDown as well. 2 big title matches on this show. Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin were challenging the Usos for the belts. The Usos could not continue. Jimmy or Jay, I'm not sure which one it was, got his knee clipped on the outside of the ring by Chad Gable, and kind of like a cheap shot, and he couldn't continue. Referee calls for the bell, and Gable and Shelton Benjamin win either by countout or by forfeit. I forget how, but they don't win the belts. And it was kind of meaningless. Like, the match didn't even go very long. I thought this was going to be a match that might be more highly contested than this. But it was just a way for WWE to get out of this match without having to have, a title change or whatever. So the Usos are still champs. They'll go into Survivor Series to face Sheamus and Cesaro. And as of right now, I don't know what Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin will be doing. Probably nothing at the pay-per-view. So that kind of rounds out your SmackDown show. That's all we saw. Like I said, next week we're going to get Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens taking on the New Day. We're going to get Charlotte challenging Natalya for the SmackDown Women's title. And I'm sure we're going to get some fallout from AJ Styles' title win over Jinder Mahal. And I'll be reading the wrestling news very closely this week just to see if there's any news on why WWE made this decision to take the belt off of Jinder and why AJ is going in to face Brock. I know it seems obvious. AJ and Brock will be the better match, but logic and WWE don't really go together. Usually WWE doesn't give a shit about what makes sense or what the fans would like. So for them to actually do this is surprising me a little bit, and it's just making me scratch my head and making me wonder what exactly is going on. But, overall, I think WWE gave the Manchester audience 2 really good shows with significant things happening. Normally on these UK shows, we don't see much. We always see good wrestling, but we never see major shit go down. So we had title changes, multiple title changes, we had debuts, and we had some surprises, and all in all, it was a really good 2 days of wrestling, in the United Kingdom. So the fans over there deserve it, and I could not be happier for them. Let's backtrack and move on to Monday Night Raw now. Raw was not without its share of surprises and title changes either. Of course, Raw came from Manchester as well, and the big news on that show is new. WWE Tag Team Champions Sheamus and Cesaro The Bar defeated Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose in the main event when the New Day came out to interfere and cost the Shield the match. Now, Kurt Angle started freaking out. He was going backstage, entering the locker room, telling everybody to get out of the locker room. Let's go. It's happening again. Raw is under siege again. And he was screaming out Code Blue, which I laughed my ass off when he was doing that. And the Shield, or the New Day, was out there just long enough to cut their promo and create enough distraction for Sheamus to wind up hitting the Brogue Kick on Seth Rollins. And amidst all the confusion, the match was still in progress. And the Bar came away with the victory here and stole the tag team titles from Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. So now you got to think, with the Bar heading into Survivor Series to face the Usos, which to me is kind of a big disappointment. I was looking forward to Seth and Dean versus the Usos. I thought that was going to be an amazing match. I think Cesaro and Sheamus are an excellent tag team. You guys know I love them, and I'm sure they will pair well with the Usos, but I don't know if the match will be as good as it would have been if Seth and Dean were in there. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But where does that leave Seth and Dean now? And Roman Reigns has been announced to return to Raw next week. I believe Raw is in Atlanta. So Roman is officially back with the Shield and with WWE starting next week. One can only assume that the Shield is going to go into Survivor Series to take on the New Day in a 6-man tag. Otherwise, they could throw Roman into that main event somehow, or the 5-on-5 match, I should say. Maybe they bump Jason Jordan next week or something like that, and Roman gets into the team, and then Seth and Dean take on the New Day 2-on-3. I don't know. But right now, it's looking like the Shield will be taking on the New Day because they're going to want revenge for the New Day costing them the tag team titles. So I was kind of excited that we had a title change on Raw. This, of course, was before SmackDown, before the big WWE title change. So I was excited enough that WWE actually did something on these England Raws. I mentioned that earlier on, how normally, when they are overseas like this and the shows are taped and the spoilers are released, the shows are generally really good. We usually get some good wrestling, but there's never anything major that takes place. Never any big title changes, never any big swerves. There's one here or there, but nothing ever really crazy significant. This has got to be the two most significant Raws and SmackDowns overseas that they have ever had as far as major things taking place. So I enjoyed Monday Night Raw as well. I thought that main event match was really good. I liked seeing the New Day out there, and I liked seeing the title change. And then next week, we'll see what happens with the Shield. There is a lot of talk and a lot of rumors out there right now about a Dean Ambrose heel turn. A lot of people think that is on the horizon. We've all been speculating about that for quite some time, but I think WWE wants to get a little time with the Shield back together. Don't forget, as soon as they reunited, Roman got sick. So they haven't even had a chance to run with the Shield yet at all and have some merchandise sales be generated from this and have them on TV together maybe for a couple of months. So maybe they keep them together, until the Royal Rumble or beyond, because the Shield being involved in the Royal Rumble, that will create some interesting pairings and some interesting possibilities if two or all three members of the Shield end up getting physical with each other in the Royal Rumble. So I'm kind of hoping, as much as I do want to see a Dean Ambrose heel turn in the future, that they hold this off a little bit while longer and we have a little bit of fun with the Shield being back together as a faction before they go ahead with the breakup. But I guess we'll find out a lot more next week on the Go Home Raw, what the Shield will be doing at Survivor Series and whether or not it'll be 3-on-3 with the New Day or if Roman finds his way into that 5-on-5 match. The other big news on Monday Night Raw was Pete Dunne made his quote-unquote debut on Monday Night Raw. A lot of people were calling this a debut. I don't think I'm going to jump the gun on that quite yet. I don't know if this was necessarily a debut. I don't think Pete Dunne is going to be on TV every week. I think that they were over there in England. He's the UK champion. Bring him out as a surprise for the crowd, and it worked. It was a huge pop that he got. Fans loved seeing him there, and of course he was in there with Enzo, and Pete Dunne has a hell of a lot more respect from the wrestling fans than Enzo does as far as his in-ring ability and his toughness goes. The guy's incredibly entertaining in the ring, and it was fun to watch him go out there and rip the head off of Enzo. It was just basically used to further the storyline between Enzo and Kalisto, but that's okay. To me, Pete Dunne was a really nice surprise for the audience, and since Raw already has the Cruiserweight division, I don't see them bringing in the UK division. If Pete Dunne is debuting on Raw, that means a lot of those UK guys are going to have to come with him, you would think, because they still really don't know what they're going to do with this UK division. So, if it was up to me, I've mentioned this several times in the past couple of videos in my live shows, that if you really wanted to make these two shows equal, they should make SmackDown 3 hours and add the UK division to SmackDown. That way, Raw's got the Cruiserweights, SmackDown's got the UK division, they both have a women's division, and they're on equal footing. I know adding an hour of programming to our already crowded wrestling schedule per week sounds nuts, but if they really want to make these two brands equal, that's what they should do. But I don't see that happening. It's just, an idea that I had. So I think Pete Dunne was out there just to give that crowd that thrill. And how about that music botch, huh? Boy, did they fuck that up. It kind of sucked, too, because it kind of took the steam out of the surprise. We saw Enzo out there cutting his promo and, talking all of his shit. Kalisto comes out there and he sits at ringside in a chair, kind of crosses his arms and just waits and says, "Oh boy, are you in for a surprise, buddy?" And then Pete Dunne's music hits and the roof blows off. And it was amazing. But instead of Pete Dunne coming out there, Kurt Angle comes out there. And he announces to the crowd that Enzo will be facing Pete Dunne. But Pete Dunne's music is already playing. We already know it's him. So what I think happened here is they botched this music. I think they were supposed to play Kurt Angle's music. Or maybe no music at all. And Kurt Angle was supposed to come out there and interrupt Enzo and then announce Pete Dunne. And then they cue Dunne's music and he comes out to a big pop. Something went awry there. I'm not really sure what they fucked up, but they definitely fucked up something. And I wish WWE would have had the ability to kind of call an audible there. They should have said, okay, wait a minute, we fucked up the music. Kurt, don't even bother going out there. Just send out Pete Dunne. That's all you needed to do. Kurt did not come out there, or not need to come out there to make that announcement. once they fucked up the music, they should have just scrapped it and said, all right, send Pete Dunne out there. His music's already playing anyway. Kurt coming out there at this point is pointless. So I really didn't like that, but it was really awesome to see Pete Dunne. He got an awesome reaction from the crowd, and I think he worked with the perfect guy in Enzo and wound up beating him. And then Kalisto, celebrated over Enzo's broken body, and he's moving on to his Cruiserweight title match with him at Survivor Series. So awesome to see Pete Dunne on Monday Night Raw. Hopefully we will see more of him, but I don't really consider this to be Pete Dunne's debut on the main roster. I think this was kind of a one-shot deal. And I also saw Triple H make that appearance at the ICW show that Pete Dunne was involved in there. I think he was about to have a match, and then Triple H showed up out of nowhere. The crowd lost their shit, cut a little bit of a promo, and that was really cool. So, I really have a lot of high hopes for that UK division if WWE can ever figure out how to do it. Maybe they should just have it take place all in England and on the independent circuit, and then maybe film some of these matches and show them on the network or something. I don't know. But whatever they do with the UK division, I just hope that it works, because the Cruiserweight division has been a little iffy so far, to say the least. Some of the other major things that we saw on Monday Night Raw, The Miz opened up the show with a Miz TV segment with Kurt Angle. Miz is talking all of his shit. He's got a message for Baron Corbin, and he's talking shit to Kurt Angle, being such a jerk. Kurt Angle gets pissed and says, you know what, fuck off, and makes Miz take on Braun Strowman later on in the night, which was really funny. And the Miz was kind of freaked out about that. We fast forward to that match. Strowman just annihilates the Miz. He's tossing him all over the ring, kicks his ass for a little while, throws him on the outside of the ring on top of the rest of the Miztourage, and that's when Kane comes out. Kane comes to the ring, brawls a little bit with Braun Strowman. Strowman hits him with the power slam. Kane sits up, and then finally Braun ends up clotheslining Kane over the top rope. Kane lands on his feet. Braun is then attacked by the Miztourage, and he kills all of them and ends up nailing Miz with the power slam at the end. And Braun looks fucking awesome as ever. My favorite guy on that Raw roster. He is fucking hilarious. So Strowman has got a ton of momentum heading into the Survivor Series 5-on-5 match with his team, teaming up with Kurt Angle and a couple of other guys, 3 other guys. The rest of the Raw team pretty much was announced on Monday Night Raw. The next 2 guys announced were Samoa Joe and Finn Balor. Samoa Joe had a match with Titus O'Neil, but he attacks Titus and Apollo Crews on the ramp before the match starts, gets in the ring and cuts a promo, says that nobody on the roster can touch him. He needs competition. He can beat anybody, no matter how big, how small, how bad you are, which makes me think that a confrontation between Joe and Braun Strowman is on the horizon, which will be a lot of fun whenever Braun Strowman figures out what the hell he's going to do with Kane. I think him and Joe can make for a pretty fun match in the future. Finn Balor comes out to accept the challenge. The 2 of them have a really good match. They gave the UK audience a good match here. It ended in a double countout when tempers boiled over and the 2 are just brawling with each other on the outside of the ring. They have to be separated. Kurt Angle ends up coming out and says, this is the type of passion that I like. Both of you are now on the Raw 5-man team at Survivor Series. So Kurt Angle, puts both of these guys who want to kill each other on the same team. And what was funny about this is Corey Graves and Michael Cole said like 4 or 5 times each, they're like, wow, what a great decision. You can't argue with that decision. How smart is our general manager to put these 2 guys on his team? How smart is your general manager? How about how dumb is your general manager? When you look at this in storyline, you do not want 2 guys that want to murder each other on the same team. They could implode. They just have a brawl here just 2 weeks before Survivor Series. They want to rip each other's heads off. Now you're going to make them coexist. What if tempers flare up again in the 5-on-5 match? They start fighting with each other and they both get counted out, and you've lost 2 guys because your own fucking team can't get along. We've seen that happen in previous Survivor Series throughout the years. As a matter of fact, one of the very first ones, they pulled this shit with like Bad News Brown. Couldn't get along with his team, ended up walking out or whatever, and they lost a team member. So to me, even though Joe and Finn Balor are awesome talents that anybody would want on their team, when you look at it logically, Kurt Angle should not pick both of these guys. He should make a match next week on the Go Home show between the 2 of them, and the winner of that match is on the Raw team. Putting them both on there is a risk that you would think Raw would not want to take. They would want to have a little bit more of a cohesive team. Now, I know that Braun Strowman and Kurt Angle, and Braun Strowman and anybody for that matter, are really not on the same page either, but given the way Joe and Finn were attacking each other so viciously, I found it odd that both guys were added to the Raw team. So who knows if that could play a role in the outcome or the finish of the Survivor Series match. The other guy that was announced for the team was Jason Jordan. Kurt Angle announces his very own son to be on the Raw team after Jason Jordan beat Elias in a guitar on a pole match. Jesus, I really hope this is the end of the feud. I mentioned in my live show on Monday that I like Elias a lot. I think he's got a lot of potential. I like his look. I like his charisma. I like his heat-getting abilities. But I really have been bored with this feud with Jason Jordan. So hopefully this guitar on a pole match is the blow-off, and we never have to see these two guys work again. And now Jason Jordan is on the 5-man team at Survivor Series. Like I said, they might insert Roman into this at the last minute. Maybe Roman Reigns, shows up on Raw and says, Kurt Angle, I want to be on the team. How about I take on your son? And if I beat him, I'm on the team. And maybe Kurt Angle reluctantly agrees and Roman finds his way onto the Raw team. I don't know. But as it stands right now, we have Kurt Angle, Braun Strowman, Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, and Jason Jordan rounding out the 5-man Raw team at Survivor Series. Speaking on 5-on-5 matches at Survivor Series, the women, of course, have their big match with SmackDown, and we had some more members of that team announced. Asuka is one of those members. She destroyed a jobber named Stacey Coates on Monday Night Raw, made really quick work of her in about a minute and a half. After the match, Alicia is on the Tron, and she announces that Asuka is going to be on the Raw team. So, if you ask me, they can put Asuka on the team by herself, and she can take on the entire fucking SmackDown team if it was up to me. The other participant named to the 5-woman team at Survivor Series was Sasha Banks. Her and Bayley defeated Nia Jax and Alicia Fox in a tag team match. Sasha tapped out Alicia, and after the match, Alicia, selling the injuries, gets on the mic and says, yeah, you might have whipped my ass, but I need you on my team, and announces Sasha Banks for the team as well. So Raw has Alicia Fox as the captain, Nia Jax, Sasha Banks, and Asuka. So there is one more spot left to fill. I don't know if that's going to go to Bayley next week on the Go Home Raw or not. It might be. It probably will be her. If it's not her, I don't know who the hell it can be. Who's really left on the women's division on Raw? Dana Brooke, maybe? Who else am I missing? So maybe Bayley figures out a way to get on that 5-women team next week. We'll have to wait and see there. And that was pretty much your Raw in a nutshell. I thought it was a really good show, fun night of wrestling. We had a title change. We had a surprise debut on Raw as well. So even though it was a tape show and it was overseas, they gave us a really good, solid night of wrestling. And I think for the most part, the reviews on Monday Night Raw were positive. So let's just take a quick look at Survivor Series here. Next week, of course, is the Go Home Raw and SmackDown shows. I'll be up after those shows, and I'll also be giving Survivor Series predictions next week in episode 467. So right now, for Survivor Series, we have AJ versus Brock Lesnar, unless something happens next week on the Go Home SmackDown and Jinder gets it back. But as it stands right now, it's going to be AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar, champion versus champion match. That's going to be awesome. The Miz versus Baron Corbin, Sheamus and Cesaro versus the Usos, Natalya versus Alexa Bliss, Enzo versus Kalisto, the 5-on-5 women's match. SmackDown has Becky Lynch, Naomi, Carmella, Tamina, and Charlotte taking on Alicia Fox, Nia Jax, Sasha Banks, Asuka, and one more member yet to be announced. The 5-on-5 men's team, SmackDown has Randy Orton, Shane McMahon, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Bobby Roode. Raw has Kurt Angle, Finn Balor, Samoa Joe, Braun Strowman, and Jason Jordan, and then possibly The Shield versus The New Day. So, looks like an okay card with the changes that have been taking place to Survivor Series over the past couple of days. I think have kind of helped it, provided they actually still go through with AJ and Brock and they don't change anything up. If that's what they do, it should be a pretty fun Survivor Series pay-per-view, I would say. So yeah, the pay-per-view is looking good so far. I guess we'll have the final card and everything will be finalized by next week. So I will give my full preview and predictions on Survivor Series in next week's episode. Other than that, before I get out of here, just a couple of other things I do want to mention. Of course, Chris Jericho will be taking on Kenny Omega at Wrestle Kingdom 12 in January next year. That match was announced over the weekend at a New Japan show after Kenny Omega had successfully retained his title. He cut a promo, talked about that he really doesn't have any competition. That's when Chris Jericho appeared on the big screen, and he had a picture of Kenny Omega, and I think he ripped it apart, said that he's the best in the world, that he is the alpha. I like that, alpha versus Omega, and there you go. I think that's fucking great. We kind of had a feeling that was going to lead to something, because I mentioned this right off the bat. As soon as you guys were telling me that Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega had a Twitter beef, I'm like, they got to be setting up for something here. They got to be setting up for a match. Chris Jericho is on really awesome terms with the WWE, the way he kind of signs those short-term deals, and he's pretty much free to do whatever he wants. He's one of the few guys in WWE that's been able to do that and go off and do his own thing. And I'm sure he told WWE his plans. I'm sure Triple H or Vince McMahon, got a heads up on that. But I think it's really cool that he wants to go and work that show. Chris Jericho has not had many matches, maybe just one or two, not even that many, outside of the WWE since he left WCW. So it's cool to see him go out and do an outside project like this. I know it's a funny situation with WWE and the Bullet Club and some of the things that's been going on with them and the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes issues and Jimmy Jacobs and all that shit. Kind of a touchy situation there, but Chris Jericho doesn't give a shit. He can do what he wants. He's had a great career. He's a legend. He's an icon. He's a Hall of Famer. And I think it's cool that he's going to go off and do this match. And provided these two guys stay healthy and this match actually takes place in a couple of months, it's one that I will actually watch. I watched bits and pieces of the last Wrestle Kingdom show, and the wrestling on these shows is fucking incredible. So I think this match is going to be a lot of fun. And Jericho in there with a guy like that is just, it's such a Jericho thing to do. So I never really bought into the Twitter beef. I knew that this was going to lead to something, to a match or to a program or something like that. And apparently that's the case. So hopefully Chris Jericho will come back to WWE around next year. Of course, by then it's going to be WrestleMania time. And I'm not sure if that's an opportunity and a payday that Chris Jericho really wants to pass up. And I even threw out the suggestion in my live show on Monday that maybe, perhaps, that they could actually do a rematch in WWE. Maybe there's a way to work something out. The way WWE is, I don't see them bringing in Kenny Omega for a one-match deal or a two-match deal or anything like that. They're going to want to sign this guy. So Kenny Omega is going to have to jump to WWE in order for that match to happen, in my opinion. But it would be cool if they did like a rematch at the Royal Rumble, maybe a blow-off at WrestleMania. How cool would that be? So that's looking way down the line. But right now I'm extremely excited, and I think we all are, for Omega versus Jericho. So that is pretty much it for me for this week. I do want to let you guys know that I have not yet watched the Ric Flair 30 for 30. That is actually airing right now as I'm recording this commentary. So I didn't want to wait to get this commentary up because what we saw on SmackDown, I didn't want to delay it very long. Wanted to get up here right away. So as soon as I'm done editing and posting this to YouTube, I will take a look at the Ric Flair 30 for 30 show and I'll comment about it on social media. Check my Twitter, follow me at Good Mic Work, like my Facebook page. I'll probably say something about it over there. And I will talk about it in my next episode next week when I give you my Survivor Series predictions. So that is it for me tonight. You guys take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. If I have a chance to come up here and do another live show sometime between now and episode 467, I will. I probably will this time for Survivor Series too. Here's a little quick early programming note for you. I think after Survivor Series, I'm actually going to do a live review instead of doing my normal podcast when I review a pay-per-view. I think maybe I'll come up here live right after Survivor Series goes off the air. I'll be home all day for that, and I'll be live tweeting with all of you watching the show. It might be fun to do kind of like a live review and test out how that works. And like I said, my live shows are not going to replace my podcasts. I'm going to be up here weekly, but maybe with some of these pay-per-view reviews, a live show might be better just for views and for turnout from the fans and all of that. So I might be giving that a shot, and I probably will be giving that a shot for Survivor Series in a couple of weeks. So that is it for me. I am out of here. You guys take care. Thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you very soon. Until next time, peace.